Hello, it's Kesha. Welcome and welcome back. We are on chapter 48 of our Lenten lessons. We are in the middle of, or we've just started really, the test at Heliopolis. So last week we did the first test, sincerity over hypocrisy, and now we move into the second test. So let us begin. The master took down from the wall a scroll on which was written down the number and the name of every attribute and character. Nope, I think we've already read that. Nope, chapter 49 is where we are. Glad I got that right. Okay, 49. The Logos did not care to rest. He said, "Why wait in this luxurious room? I need not rest. My Father's work upon me presses hard. I would go on and learn my lessons all. If there are trials, let them come, for every victory over self gives added strength." And then the guide led on, and in a chamber dark as night was Jesus placed and left alone, and days were spent in this deep solitude. And Jesus slept, and in the dead of night a secret door was opened, and in priest's attire 2 men came in, each carried in his hand a little flickering lamp. Approaching Jesus, one spoke out and said, "Young man, our hearts are grieved because of what you suffer in these fearful dens, and we have come as friends to bring you light and show you the way to liberty. We once, like you, were in these dens confined and thought that through these weird, uncanny ways we could attain to blessedness and power. But in a luckful moment we were undeceived, and making use of all our strength, we broke our chains. And when we learned that all this service in corruption, all this service is corruption in disguise. These priests are criminals just hid away. They boast in sacrificial rites they offer to their gods and burn them while alive, poor birds and beasts, yea, children, women, and men. And now they keep you here, and at a certain time may offer you up in sacrifice. We pray you, brother, break your chains, come, go with us, and accept of freedom while you may." And Jesus said, "Your little tapers show the light you bring. Pray, who are you? The words of man are worth no more than is the man himself. These temple walls are strong and high. How gained you entrance to this place?" The men replied, "Beneath the walls are many hidden ways, and we who have been priests, spent months and years within these dens, know all of them." "Then you are traitors," Jesus said. "A traitor is a fiend. He who has betrayed another man is never a man to trust. If one has only reached the plane of treachery, he is a lover of deceit, and he will betray a friend to serve his selfish self. Behold, you man, or whatsoever you may be, your words fall lightly on my ears. Could I prejudge these 100 priests, turn traitor to myself and them, because of what you say when you confess your treachery? No, no man can judge me for me, and if I judge till testimony all is in, I might not judge aright. Nay, men, by whatsoever way you came, return. My soul prefers the darkness of the grave to little flickering lights like these you bring. My conscience rules. What these, my brothers, have to say, I'll hear, and when the testimony is all in, I will decide. You cannot judge for me, nor I for you. Begone, you men, begone, and leave me to this charming light, for while the sun shines not, within my soul there is a light surpassing that of the sun or moon." Then, with an angry threat that they would do him harm, the wily tempters left, and Jesus was again alone. Again, the white-robed priests appeared and led the way, and Jesus stood again before the Hierophant, and not a word was said, but in his hands the master placed a scroll on which the word suggestive, "Justice," was inscribed. And Jesus was the master of the phantom forms of prejudice and treachery. Let's do one more. The Logos waited 7 days and then was taken to the Hall of Fame, a chamber rich in furnishings and lighted up with gold and silver lamps. The colors of its ceilings, decorations, furniture, and walls were blue and gold. And shelves were filled with books of masterminds and paintings, and the statues were works of the highest art. And Jesus was entranced with all its elegance and these manifestations of thought. He read the sacred books and sought the meanings of the symbols and the hieroglyphs. And when he was absorbed in deepest thought, a priest approached and said, "Behold the glory of this place, my brother. You are highly blessed. Few men of earth so young have reached the heights of fame. Now, if you do not waste your life in search of hidden things that men may never comprehend, you may be founder of a school of thought that will ensure your endless fame. For your philosophy is deeper far that than of Plato, and your teachings please the common people more so than those of Socrates. Why seek for mystic light within these antiquated dens? Go forth and walk with men and think with men, and they will honor you. And after all, these weird initiations may be myths. And your Messiah hopes but base illusions of the hour. I would advise you to renounce certain things and choose the course that leads to certain fame." And thus the priest, a demon in disguise, sang siren songs of unbelief, and Jesus meditated long and well on what was said. The conflict was a bitter one, for King Ambition is a sturdy foe to fight. For 40 days the higher wrestled with the lower self, and then the fight was won. Faith rose triumphant. Unbelief was not. Ambition covered up his face and fled away, and Jesus said, "The wealth, the honor, and the fame of earth are but baubles of the hour." And when this short span of earthly life is all but measured out, man's bursting baubles will be buried with his bones. Yea, what a man does for his selfish self will make no markings on the credit side of life. The good that men for other men shall do becomes a ladder strong on which the soul may climb to wealth and power and fame of God's own kind that cannot pass away. Give me the poverty of men, the consciousness of duty done in love, the approbation of my God, and I will be content. And then he lifted up his eyes to heaven and said, "My Father God, I thank thee for this hour. I ask not for the glory of thyself. I fain would be a keeper of thy temple gates and serve my brother man." Again was Jesus called to stand before the Hierophant. Again no word was said, but in his hands the master placed a scroll on which was written, "Faith." And Jesus bowed his head in humble thanks and went his way. Okay, so we will stop there. So, Jesus goes through the second test of justice. I like how once in each chapter of this particular reading, they talk about weird initiations. You wouldn't think of the word weird necessarily as coming up in writings from, 1901, 1920, I think was the first printing. But these weird and uncanny ways. I guess that just speaks to how strange in contrast they're trying to make it seem. But that's just, that's literature and color. But as for what Spirit is telling us here, these tempters that come are really our phantom thoughts, right? Our phantom thoughts made manifest, or our phantom thought having been given so much energy that they seem to be real. And they make us question our highest ambition. Maybe I shouldn't use the word ambition because I might get confused with what's happening in the lesson. But if our goal is to be master of self, that road is long. And 40 days and 40 nights is not necessarily 40 days and 40 nights. It's an Aramaic idiomatic expression. It's taking as long as it takes, right? So when we have these ideas about how we want to discipline ourselves to mastery, that road is long, right? Or relatively so, because we don't become masters overnight. And there is no one else who can walk that path but us, because the conditions we meet are, one, of our own making, and two, precisely what we have created. We've created the environment that we need to walk through in order to master the tests that lead us to mastery. And so it's interesting that these thoughts, like these negative thoughts, these these are the real uncanny and weird thoughts, right? That come to us after we've made that decision and we're embarking on that journey, come up to tell us that, hey, wait a minute, maybe there's an easier way. Maybe this idea that I had based on what I believed to be true and what I knew to be true when I said yes to the discipline, were just corrupt thoughts and ways to seek punishment. So we always think we're being tested in that way. And I love that Jesus comes back to, no, until all the facts are in, I will not judge. And you cannot judge for me, and I will not judge for you. I will wait until I have heard all. And so the answer is, when you've embarked on a journey towards mastery, stay the course, right? That which comes up to to show you where you are, right? So what you're accepting of in that moment is what you are okay with. But if mastery is what you're after, you have to walk the full measure until mastery is complete. So justice over prejudice is the second test. And then we move on to faith, because who of us hasn't had our faith tested when we've decided on a course and things do not look like what we expect them to look like, right? And just because we've decided on a course that promises a promised land doesn't mean that every step along that path is going to be easy and flowery and fun. Sometimes it's not. And sometimes it's easier to take the easy route, right? There's the wealth that's built over time, and then there's the get-rich-quick scheme. And ambition is a sturdy foe. It's easy to, instead of completing this mastery, which will make me a model for the sons of men, I can just go out and take what teachings I have already and make myself a prophet, and I'll be well known and well regarded, and maybe that's enough. But that second course doesn't lead you to mastery, right? It's trying to profit off of where you currently are in consciousness without seeking greater growth. Whereas the path to mastery that requires faith requires the patience to let it unfold. And so Jesus had some pretty stern words to beat them back. And I think that's important. One, because we always think of Jesus as being so loving, so kind. I mean, the butterflies light on his shoulders and the lamb comes up and feeds from his hand. And that's great. But in this particular passage, if you read it, those who have eyes to see and those who have ears to hear, you can hear the sharpness of his rebuke to the tempters. And that's what it takes. It takes a strong voice. It takes fortitude, right? To stand on your word and principle and live in that space when others would try to detract from it or try to lead you astray into something that's less than. And it's I love that line. The little tapers show the little tapers you have show the tapers you have show the little light that you bring. You have nothing for me. I love that. Not because it's sharp and I like a good turn of phrase, but when you are confronted with a choice and you can see it for what it is and how it's not in alignment with what your ultimate goal is, the stern rebuke is required. If not just for them to go away, remember that them is those thoughts. That's how you silence them. Because after Jesus speaks, there's really nothing else for them to say, right? And so they can't help but, he has brought enough light to their darkness that they have to flee. There's no space for them in his light. Man, oh man. So I think we've all been there. As I'm speaking, I'm thinking about a particular situation that I find myself in. And I'm going to choose mastery. I'm going to choose the higher. So that 40 days and 40 nights he wrestled, the higher wrestled with the lower self, and then the fight was won. I guess for me, I'm still in that fight. But that's okay. I know that mastery is around the corner. All right, my lovely friends. We will be back here next week for our next test. And we'll see if we do one or two at a time. And in the meantime, think about where we are this week, these first 3 tests, and how they show up in your life and what answers you had to rebuke the tempters. All right, I love you. I'll see you next week. Bye.